I was counting change for a customer when the elderly woman in front of me dropped her wallet. Bills scattered across the floor. $20 bills, mostly. Maybe $200 total. I bent down to help her gather them up. My knees cracked. I was 67 years old, working the evening shift at Save Mart grocery store in Phoenix, Arizona. My back hurt. My feet hurt. Everything hurt. But I smiled at her anyway. "Here you go, ma'am," I said, handing her the bills. She looked up at me, really looked at me. Her hands started shaking. "Thomas?" she whispered. "Thomas Whitmore?" I frowned. I didn't recognize her. Maybe she was a customer I'd helped before. We got a lot of regulars. "Yes, ma'am, that's me." Her eyes filled with tears. She grabbed my hand. "I've been looking for you," she said. "For 40 years I've been looking for the Whitmore family." The customer behind her cleared his throat, impatient. The line was backing up. "Ma'am, I need to—" "Your mother," she interrupted. "Margaret Whitmore. She saved my life." My chest tightened. My mother had been dead for 35 years. "I'm sorry," I said. "I think you have me confused with someone else." "No," she shook her head firmly. "Phoenix 1975. The flood. Your mother gave my family $40,000. Every penny she had. We were going to lose everything." I stared at her. My manager was looking over now, wondering why I'd stopped scanning items. "Ma'am, I really need to." "Please." Her grip on my hand was surprisingly strong. "I'm Helen Kowalski. Your mother saved my family's restaurant. I've been trying to find you to say thank you, to pay her back." Something in her voice made me stop, made me actually look at her. She was about 80 years old, well-dressed, diamond earrings, expensive coat. Not the kind of person you usually saw at Save Mart at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. "My break is in 20 minutes, I heard myself say. "Can you wait?" She nodded. "I've waited 40 years. 20 minutes is nothing." I finished my shift in a daze. I couldn't think about anything except my mother, Margaret Whitmore. She died when I was 32 years old. Cancer. Quick and brutal. I barely had time to say goodbye. And I remembered 1975. I was 12 years old. There had been a flood that summer, a bad one. Parts of Phoenix had been underwater for weeks. I remembered my mother coming home one day, looking tired. So tired. She'd sat me down and told me we needed to be careful with money for a while. She'd helped some people. People who needed it more than we did. I'd asked her why. "Because that's what we do, Tommy," she'd said. "When we can help, we help. No questions asked." My father had died 2 years earlier. Heart attack. Just dropped dead at work one day. My mother raised me alone after that. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. We never had much, but we always had enough. Helen was waiting for me outside, sitting on a bench near the store entrance. She stood up when she saw me. "Thank you for waiting," I said. "Can we talk?" she asked. "There's a diner across the street." I should have said no. I should have gone home. Home. That was a generous word for the studio apartment I rented above a garage. The same garage where I kept my 15-year-old Honda Civic. But something in her eyes made me say yes. We walked across the street in silence. The diner was nearly empty. We took a booth in the back. "Coffee?" the waitress asked. "Please," Helen said. Then she looked at me. "Have you eaten?" "Order something. My treat." "I'm fine," I said. She gave me a look that reminded me of my mother. That look that said, "I know you're lying." "Order something," she said again. "Please." I ordered a burger. I was hungry. I was always hungry. I couldn't afford to eat much these days. Helen waited until the waitress left before she spoke. "Tell me about your life, Thomas. What happened after your mother died?" I didn't want to talk about it, but something about her made me open up. Maybe it was because she'd known my mother. Maybe it was because I hadn't talked to anyone about my life in so long. "I got married," I said. "Susan, we had a daughter, Rebecca." "Had?" "Susan died 3 years ago. Stroke." Helen reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm so sorry." I nodded. I couldn't talk about Susan yet. Even after 3 years, it hurt too much. "And Rebecca?" My jaw tightened. This was the part I really didn't want to talk about. "She's fine. She's a lawyer. Lives in Scottsdale. Big house. Nice car. Successful." Helen waited. She could hear what I wasn't saying. She doesn't talk to me anymore, I said finally. Not since Susan died. Why not? I laughed. It was a bitter sound. Because when Susan died, everything was in her name. The house, the savings, everything. I thought it would come to me automatically. You know, as her husband. It didn't? Turns out Susan had changed her will 6 months before she died. She left everything to Rebecca. Everything. But surely you had rights. Susan's lawyer said she was very clear. She wanted Rebecca to have it all. I don't know why. Maybe she thought I'd waste it. Maybe she thought Rebecca needed it more. Maybe. I stopped. I couldn't finish that sentence. Maybe she'd stopped loving me. So Rebecca got the house, Helen said quietly. Rebecca got everything. The house was worth $400,000. We'd been paying the mortgage for 30 years. Susan's life insurance. Her retirement account. All of it went to Rebecca. And she gave you nothing? I shook my head. She offered to let me stay in the house for a while. A few months, she said, until I figured things out. That was kind of her. It would have been, except she wanted rent. $1,500 a month. Market rate, she called it. Helen's face hardened. Your own daughter charged you rent in your own home? Her home. Legally. And I couldn't afford it. I was 64 years old. I'd just retired. My pension was only $1,200 a month. Social Security wouldn't kick in for another year. So what did you do? I moved out. I found the cheapest place I could. A studio apartment. $600 a month. Then I got a job here at Save Mart. Minimum wage. 20 hours a week. That's all they'd give me. Said I was too old for full time. The burger arrived. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until I started eating. Helen watched me. There was something in her eyes. Sadness. And something else. Anger, maybe. Rebecca never visited? She asked. Once. About 6 months after I moved out. She wanted me to sign some papers. Something about a refinance on the house. She needed my signature because my name was still on the original mortgage. Did you sign? I did. I figured it didn't matter anymore. She owned the house. What difference did it make? Did she thank you? I laughed again. Same bitter sound. She offered to take me to lunch. As a thank you. Then she looked at her watch and said she had a meeting. She gave me $20 instead. For lunch. Helen closed her eyes. I'm so sorry, Thomas. It's fine. I'm fine. I have my job. I have my apartment. I don't need much. You're not fine, Helen said. You're working at a grocery store at 67 years old because your daughter abandoned you. That's not fine. I didn't say anything. She was right. But what was I supposed to do about it? Tell me about your mother, Helen said, changing the subject. What do you remember about her? I smiled. Finally, a subject I could talk about without feeling broken. She was kind, I said. That's the first word I think of. Kind. She never met a person she wouldn't help. Even when we had nothing, she'd find a way to give. The flood, Helen said. In 1975. Do you remember it? I remember. We lived in a small house near the river. The water came up fast. We had to evacuate. When we came back, everything was ruined. The furniture, my toys, everything. Do you remember what your mother did after? I thought back. It was so long ago. I'd been 12. Just a kid. She went to work, I said slowly. She had 2 jobs back then. During the day, she worked at a bank. At night, she cleaned offices. I remember she took on extra shifts. For months, she was never home. She was paying back what she gave us, Helen said. What do you mean? Helen took a deep breath. Let me tell you the whole story, Thomas. Let me tell you what your mother did for my family. I leaned back and listened. In 1975, my family owned a small restaurant, Kowalski's, Polish food. My parents had opened it 10 years earlier. It was their dream, their whole life. The flood destroyed it, I guessed. Completely. The water was 6 feet deep. Everything was ruined. The kitchen, the dining room, all of our equipment. We didn't have flood insurance. Nobody did back then. We thought we were far enough from the river. How did you meet my mother? She came into the restaurant the day after the flood. We were there trying to salvage what we could. She was on her lunch break from the bank. She said she'd eaten at our restaurant before. She loved my mother's pierogi. I smiled. My mother had loved Polish food. She saw us crying, Helen continued. My mother and father and me, we were all crying because we knew it was over. We couldn't rebuild. We didn't have the money. The bank had already said no to a loan. What did my mother do? She asked how much we needed. My father told her, $40,000. It might as well have been $1 million. We didn't have it. We'd never had that kind of money. Helen's eyes filled with tears again. Your mother went to the bank the next day. She withdrew her entire savings, $40,000, every penny she'd saved for 15 years. She brought it to our restaurant in cash, in an envelope. I couldn't breathe. She gave it to my father and said, "Rebuild your dream." My father tried to refuse. He said he couldn't take her life savings. She said, "Yes, you can, because I'm giving it to you." Did she want interest? I asked. Payment terms? Helen shook her head. She said, "Pay me back when you can. No interest, no deadline. Just rebuild your restaurant and make good food." Then she left. I put my head in my hands. That was exactly something my mother would do. We rebuilt, Helen said. It took us a year. But we rebuilt, and the restaurant succeeded. Really succeeded. People loved my mother's cooking. We opened a second location, then a third. By 1985, we had 10 restaurants. Kowalski's, I said suddenly. Wait, Kowalski's Polish Kitchen? There's one near my apartment. There are 52 now, Helen said, all across Arizona, Nevada, and California. Revenue of $340 million last year. I stared at her. We tried to pay your mother back, Helen said. In 1980, my father went to her house with a check for $40,000. She refused it. She said she didn't need it. She said to use it to open another restaurant. She never told me, I whispered. She probably didn't want to burden you. That's the kind of person she was. When did she die? Helen asked gently. 1989. I was 32. She was 61. We found out too late, Helen said. We tried to find her in 1990. We wanted to honor her somehow, but the house had been sold. The neighbors didn't know where you'd gone. We searched for years. But back then, before the internet, it was almost impossible. How did you find me now? I hired a private investigator 3 years ago. He finally tracked you down last month. I've been trying to work up the courage to approach you. Why tonight? Because I saw you helping me pick up my money. The way you smiled. The way you were kind even though you were clearly exhausted. You're exactly like your mother. I didn't know what to say. Helen reached into her purse. She pulled out a folder. A legal folder. Thick with documents. When my parents died, they left me the company. I've run it for the last 15 years. And the whole time, I've kept something aside. Something that belonged to your mother. She opened the folder. Inside were papers. Legal documents. Stock certificates. When your mother refused repayment in 1980, my father did something. He put aside 25% of the company, in your mother's name. He couldn't make her take the money, but he could make her a partner, a silent partner. I don't understand. Your mother owned a quarter of Kowalski's Polish Kitchen, Thomas. She's owned it since 1980, and when she died, that ownership passed to her heir, to you. My heart stopped. That's not possible. It's completely possible, and completely legal. We have all the documentation. Your mother's name is on the incorporation papers from 1980. She never knew. She never signed anything. But my father made sure it was legally binding. But you never knew. And we couldn't find you to tell you. Until now. She pushed the papers across the table. Thomas Whitmore. You own 25% of Kowalski's Polish Kitchen. That's 52 restaurants across 3 states. Based on our current valuation, your share is worth approximately $63 million. The diner disappeared. The sounds faded away. All I could hear was my heartbeat. $63 million. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. Thomas? Helen's voice sounded far away. Thomas, are you okay? I shook my head. No, I wasn't okay. This can't be real, I whispered. It's real. I promise you it's real. I have lawyers ready to meet with you, to explain everything, to transfer everything to your name. It's yours. It's been yours for 35 years. I thought about my mother, working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night so I could have new shoes, so I could go to college. She'd owned 25% of a restaurant empire and never known it. She died with nothing, I said. My voice broke. She died with nothing, and she could have been rich. She died knowing she saved my family, Helen said firmly. That meant more to her than money. You know that. I did know that. But it still hurt. What do I do? I asked. You come to my office tomorrow. You meet with my lawyers. And you claim what's rightfully yours. I nodded. I couldn't process this. It was too much. Helen paid for dinner, she insisted. Then she walked me back to my car. Will you be okay driving? She asked. I think so. She handed me a business card. My office. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll have everything ready. I took the card. It was heavy, expensive paper, gold lettering. Helen Kowalski, CEO, Kowalski's Polish Kitchen. I drove home in a daze. I kept thinking I was going to wake up. This had to be a dream. But when I got to my apartment, when I lay down on my second-hand mattress in my tiny studio, I still had Helen's card in my hand. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about my mother, about everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd given up for me. And I thought about Rebecca, my daughter, who'd taken everything from me and left me with nothing. What was I going to do about that? At 9 o'clock the next morning, I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years. At 9:45, I drove to Helen's office. It was in Scottsdale, a tall glass building, very expensive, very impressive. Helen met me in the lobby herself. She took me up to a conference room. There were 3 lawyers waiting. All of them smiled at me like I was important. I wasn't used to that. They spent 2 hours explaining everything. The company structure, the shares, the dividend history. Apparently, I'd been earning dividends for 35 years. Dividends that had been held in escrow because they couldn't find me. How much? I asked. $8.2 million, the lead lawyer said. With interest. I almost fell out of my chair. And going forward, the lawyer continued, based on current profits, you can expect quarterly dividends of approximately $350,000. I'm sorry. What? $1.4 million a year. Before taxes, of course. Of course. Before taxes. I signed papers. So many papers. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely hold the pen. When it was done, Helen smiled at me. Congratulations, Thomas. You're a very wealthy man. I didn't feel wealthy. I felt numb. What do I do now? I asked. Whatever you want, Helen said. You're a major shareholder. You can be as involved as you want, or not involved at all. It's up to you. I drove home. I sat in my apartment. I looked around at my garage studio, at my second-hand furniture, at my minimum wage life. And I thought about Rebecca. I thought about her for a long time. Then I picked up my phone. I hadn't called her in over a year, not since she'd asked me to sign those refinance papers. She answered on the 4th ring. Dad? Hi, Rebecca. Is everything okay? She sounded suspicious, like I was calling to ask for money. Everything's fine. I wanted to see you. Can we have dinner? Dinner? Yeah, tomorrow night. My treat. She paused. You sure you can afford that? That stung, but I kept my voice level. I'm sure. How about that steakhouse in Scottsdale, the one you like? Morton's? That's the one. Dad, that place is expensive. I know. 7 o'clock tomorrow? Another pause. Okay, sure. See you then. She hung up without saying goodbye. I spent the next day preparing. I met with Helen's lawyers again. I asked them some very specific questions. They gave me some very specific answers. Then I went shopping. I bought a new suit. First new suit I'd owned in 15 years. It felt strange, but good. At 6:45 the next evening, I arrived at Morton's. I'd made a reservation. A good table, quiet corner. Rebecca showed up at 7 to 10. She was always late. Sorry, she said, not sounding sorry at all. She looked around. Nice place. I wanted somewhere special. We sat down. Rebecca ordered an expensive glass of wine. I ordered water. So, what's the occasion? She asked. Can't a father take his daughter to dinner? She gave me a look. Dad, you work at a grocery store. You can't afford this place. What's going on? The server came by. We ordered. Rebecca got the filet mignon, the most expensive thing on the menu. When the server left, I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was 38 years old, beautiful, successful. She looked like her mother. But when I looked in her eyes, I didn't see Susan. I saw someone cold, someone calculating. When had that happened? I want to tell you something, I said. About your grandmother. My mother. Rebecca rolled her eyes. Dad, I don't... Please, just listen. I told her the story. All of it. The flood, the restaurant, the $40,000, my mother's kindness. Rebecca listened. I couldn't read her expression. And yesterday, I said, finishing the story, I found out that your grandmother was given a 25% stake in that restaurant company. She never knew. But when she died, that stake passed to me. Rebecca's eyes widened. What kind of stake? 25% of a company worth about $250 million. I watched her do the math. $62 million, she whispered. 63, actually. Her face changed. It was like watching a mask slip. Suddenly she was smiling. Suddenly she was warm. Dad, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you. She reached across the table to grab my hand. I pulled it back. Are you happy for me, Rebecca? Or are you happy for yourself? Her smile faltered. What do you mean? I mean, you haven't spoken to me in a year. You charged me rent in my own home. You gave me $20 for lunch like I was a homeless person you were doing a favor for. Dad, And now you're suddenly happy for me. Suddenly interested in dinner. Why do you think that is? She sat back. Her eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I'm saying I see you, Rebecca. I see who you really are. You don't know what it was like. Her voice rose. Other diners looked over. She lowered it. You don't know what it was like taking care of Mom when she was dying. You were useless. You just cried. I had to handle everything. She was my wife. And she was my mother. And she left everything to me because she knew I could handle it. Because she knew you couldn't. That hurt. But I kept my face neutral. So you deserved everything? The house? The savings? Her life insurance? Yes, I did. I earned it. And I earned nothing? You're my father. I offered to let you stay in the house for $1,500 a month. That's market rate. Our food arrived. Neither of us touched it. I have a question for you, Rebecca, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. She crossed her arms. What? Why are you here right now? What? Why did you agree to have dinner with me? Be honest. She looked away. Because you're my father. Try again. She glared at me. Fine. I thought maybe you wanted to reconcile. Maybe you were ready to apologize. Apologize? For what? For being bitter. For making me feel guilty about Mom's will. For acting like I did something wrong. Did you? No. I nodded slowly. Okay. Let me ask you something else. If I told you I wanted to share this money with you, would you accept it? Her expression changed again. Back to warm. Back to hopeful. Dad, you don't have to. Answer the question. Would you accept money from me? Yes. Of course. We're family. Family, I repeated. That's interesting. Because when I needed family, when I was 64 years old and homeless, you charged me rent. That was different. How? Because that was Mom's money. She left it to me. And this is my money. So what's the difference? She opened her mouth, closed it. She couldn't answer. I pulled out an envelope. I'd prepared it that morning. I put it on the table between us. What's that? She asked. Open it. She did. Inside was a check. For $50,000. Her eyes went wide. Dad? That's what you get, Rebecca. $50,000. That's it. But you have $63 million. I do. And I'm going to use it for something your grandmother would have wanted. I'm starting a foundation. For elderly people who've been abandoned by their families. I'm going to help them. Every single one of them. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I've already met with lawyers. It's done. The foundation launches next month. It's called the Margaret Whitmore Foundation. After your grandmother. What about me? What about you? I'm your daughter. Are you? I stood up. Because daughters don't abandon their fathers. Daughters don't charge rent in homes their father paid for. Daughters don't offer $20 for lunch and think that makes up for everything. Dad, please. That $50,000? That's what you gave me. Well, not in money. In pain. In abandonment. In humiliation. I'm giving you back exactly what you gave me. Fair is fair. I put money on the table for dinner, enough to cover both meals, plus a generous tip. Goodbye, Rebecca. Dad, wait. But I didn't wait. I walked out of Morton's. I walked out of my daughter's life. And you know what? I felt lighter than I had in 3 years. The next month was busy. The foundation lawyers helped me set everything up. We created an irrevocable trust. The Margaret Whitmore Foundation would receive 90% of my inheritance, $56 million. The foundation would help elderly people who'd been abandoned by their families. Housing assistance, medical care, legal aid, everything my mother would have wanted. Rebecca tried to call, dozens of times. I didn't answer. She tried to visit. I wasn't home. I'd moved out of my studio apartment. I bought a small house, nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, a yard, enough. She sent lawyers. They sent letters threatening to contest the foundation. Helen's lawyers sent letters back explaining that everything was completely legal, and that if Rebecca continued, we'd counter-sue for harassment. The letters stopped. 6 months later, the Margaret Whitmore Foundation opened its first housing facility, 20 apartments for elderly people who'd been abandoned, free housing, free medical care, free meals. Helen came to the opening ceremony. So did a lot of reporters. Local news covered it. I gave a speech. I talked about my mother, about her kindness, about how she gave everything to help others. I didn't mention Rebecca, but she saw the news. I know she did. And I hope every time she sees a Kowalski's restaurant, she thinks about what she lost. Not the money. The money doesn't matter. I hope she thinks about her father, the one she threw away. Because I learned something from all of this. I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who helps, who cares. Helen was more family to me than Rebecca ever was. And my mother? She was family to the Kowalskis. She was family to everyone she helped. That's the legacy I want to honor. That's the legacy I want to continue. As for Rebecca, I don't hate her. I don't wish her harm. But I don't forgive her either. Some things can't be forgiven. Some things can only be accepted. And then you move on. And you do better. You be the person your mother raised you to be. You help people who need help. And you never ever forget that kindness matters more than money. Because 40 years later, kindness saved my life. And now I get to spend the rest of my life passing that kindness forward. In my mother's name. In her memory. And that's worth more than $63 million. That's worth everything.